During my practice this morning, I felt sudden overwhelm. I saw immediately that it came from thoughts that had snuck up on me about work and all the things that I need to get done. And I realized that this is a very common state that I'm in, sometimes all day long, running on overdrive that is completely fear based. Then I realized that the source of this fear is never feeling good enough. Like no matter what I do, it's never enough. And I could sense the layers and layers that have conditioned this feeling throughout my life. I sat with the feeling and did an old practice from my pre School of Awakening time, which is called RAIN: Recognize, Allow, Investigate, and Nurture by Tara Brach. But the feeling was too strong to get through. When I think of it now, my thoughts tell me it will take forever to fix the not good enough, if at all. As unpleasant as this is, I do see that it is a good practice to distance myself from the thoughts. But then the but comes up. So as we mentioned earlier, so I'll try to make this point first, and then we will talk about what to actually do in a practical way with the feeling when it arises and stuff. But as we are putting a halt to that personal momentum, the identity, the personal identity at the very subtle depths of our experience, not seen yet, is like the mold of our existence. What we take ourselves to be on behalf of whom we live life, on behalf of whom you fear or crave or do this or that. That identity is loosened up itself. That is what meditation is. So with such a question, who am I or what is aware, um, as we're genuinely becoming interested in who am I? And again, that question presupposes that I'm not just this person. That's making us not become free of the fear or anxiety or the feeling of being not good enough, which is so ingrained in all of us. It is literally helping us see that the one as whom we fear, the one who doesn't feel good enough, is not what I am. So as this momentum is coming to a halt, the cessation of all these of all of the glue, the identity is becoming weaker, looser, rather than being so fixed in its place. And then the fear of losing this, or how is this going to go, of controlling all movements, that cannot grip us. It can only grip us if that mold at the core of it is very strong. The stronger it is, the more we want to control, the more we fear what's going to happen, the more taking taking responsibility for your life is a huge burden, and it exhausts us completely. It is so exhausting to try to control your life in every aspect, especially. The looser that core identity, which is false, becomes looser, the the desire to control every aspect, the pressure we feel as an individual to maintain, let's say, this business, this relationship, this, and I know you're a business owner, so that comes with a lot of, like, these pressures. That itself starts to become weaker. It can't grasp us. We try to, like, how can I just want to get my fear weaker, or I want to dissolve my sense of unworthiness. And this is where we sort of mature through that sort of shadow work type stuff, where we are trying to solve all of these problems one by one, but doing it as a person. We are through the very work to dissolve that stuff, we're reinforcing the person we take ourselves to be. We're just trying to go from being a broken person to a healed person, but a person nonetheless. That's where self inquiry is so, I don't even want to use the word transformative because it's not transforming anything, but it's like liberating, perhaps. That's probably a better word because it's not dissolving your fear or unworthiness. It is dissolving the person we take ourselves to be, which is the very basic assumption on behalf of whom we suffer. So that is the main point to be grasped. And I, again, anybody who joined late, please listen to the first half hour of this call because went about this in a sort of a deeper way. All that needs to be done is the cessation of that momentum. But the momentum is what we're so addicted to. Just sit down and be as you are rather than constantly feeding the momentum, the be rather than just always being a person. Meditation, self inquiry, they're not bringing us to something or to a different direction. They're simply putting to a halt the momentum which keeps this very subtle identity strong and nourished. That is the dirt we are removing. So there is no other solution to not feeling good enough. It's just like you can do anything in your life. You can become a billionaire. You can, you know, all the basic, like the things that we want. You can do all of that, yet you will still feel life is out of my control, and people still don't treat me that as well as I would like, maybe, or or I don't really have it all under control. That's the funny part about life because everything is so changeful and unstable that taking individual responsibility for it is absolutely a mess. The individual is under so much pressure in every regard of life. You have your family to maintain, you have your own personal relationship, perhaps you have your work, you have to succeed at your work, you have your whole financial situation, you have your own health. Like there's not enough time in your waking existence to really be a master of all of these things. And the funny part is, even if you somehow gather up the will to become a master in all of these things, you still are left unsatisfied. So, how could you ever really feel worthy? And I think the goal to make it a goal to feel worthy on like in a personal way, like where it's not even a worthwhile goal because yeah, you'll maybe feel worthy of having this or that or having this type of relationship and love instead of dysfunction. But then you'll still be restless because you're taking individual responsibility for everything. And as soon as you take your foot off the pedal, everything will once again fall, and then you'll become deeply insecure. So a sense of personal worthiness is still so insecure because it rests on the relationship you have, the if your business or work is going well or not, if your money situation is good or not. These are things that are so insecure, and our sense of worthiness, if it's high, then it's most likely because all these things are going well. But if it's low, it's because all these things are not. This is a vulnerable position. That is the person. That is what it looks like to take individual responsibility for your life. So the point is not to not take responsibility. We can say it in this way, and I think this is what we spoke of on a previous call. Take responsibility, but not ownership. Do what's in your power, and do that well without even a thought of if it will, um, without a worry about how it's going to go, if it's going to be exactly what you planned. We have to give it over to life. There's Oh, and we can start this with the small stuff and eventually move on to the big stuff, but why not start with the big stuff? Rest in the conviction that you are not broken, that you are not good enough or good enough. You're neither of the two. That's such a very like a personal statement. Again, with the when we come to inquiry, now we are presupposing the question, who am I, presupposes I am not a person. The moment you set aside from being a person, what is the does the question of being good enough or not even arise? It's a silly notion at that point. Even to ponder if I'm good enough requires us to like be the person that will question this, that will either want to be good enough or whatever. So your experience through the ups and downs, through all the good and bad, has brought you to this investigation. Who am I? What am I? You're not, again, as I said earlier, pondering who am I as a person? It's who am I? You feel a sense of continuity at your heart. I am me. I've always been me, regardless of everything that has changed, regardless of how many years have gone by. I am me. I don't feel younger or older, good or bad. I'm just me. These are external characteristics, young and healthy or old and sick or all like rich or poor, good, bad. These are labels which are being described to, which are being used to describe the person. And at the core of my existence, I'm just me. There's no more that you can say about that experience of being yourself. Just me being here. So there's no question of that one being broken or fixed. That one just is. And so rest in the conviction that I do not need any sort of healing, or I do not need this or that. I do not need someone's approval. I do not need to be good enough. That conviction itself will bring a sense of freedom to your personal doing. You can love another without needing their affection back. You can do your best in your business, yet maybe still come up short, things like that. Then we stop attaching what happens to our state of being, how to use it to define who I am. What happens does not define who you are. It defines the person, but it does not define who you are. But again, these things can only really be experienced if, like, as the personal identity is becoming looser. And how does it become looser? The sort of self-inquiry, putting a halt to the momentum, which is the desiring, the craving, the resisting. How to do that? The practice. Also, challenge yourself to give things over to life more and more. Whenever you're worried about things, whenever you're upset about things, whenever you're anxious about things, have no room for that. To a certain degree, it's happening. It's going to happen compulsively still, but do your best more and more. Challenge yourself to just give it over. See, again, you're not changing your mental dialogue in any way. You're just simply letting go into surrender, into trust. And you're like, right now, you don't know how to swim. You're still holding on to the side of the pool, and you're like taking little steps at a time to see if you can float by letting go little by little. But as you do that, you start seeing that, okay, I'm able to float. I am able to swim, and then it just becomes more and more. But that can't even be taught or read. It has to be just we ourselves have to be in the midst of anxiousness or fearing, and then we sort of step away from that, seeing the uselessness of it and being courageous enough to now follow whatever has arisen in our experience as some sort of advice or insight, to test it out. It's like very scientific, actually. You test it out, and then you will find the more you give over to life, not only does your life become easier because and you feel that way more at ease because you're no longer taking so much ownership of being in charge of your existence, but then also the response you get, like the how it unfolds, you start seeing life does not need my personal intervention as much as I think it does. That even without worrying, I still act in the way necessary to take care of everything in my life. So the person can do a lot more effectively when the identity from where it is coming is not limited. Either the identity is the unknown, which is life itself, right? So in this inquiry, who am I? As I said earlier, you are being yourself. You don't know what you are. That is the mystery. The identity itself is unknown, but the only fact we know that it is, I am. The identity, when like all things are flowing from the unknown, it's infinite potential. Or otherwise, it's coming from the personal identity. Of course, it's very limited. And the feeling of not being good enough is so it's in the template of isolated existence when we take ourselves to be just the individual in control of life. So this feeling of creeping up of not being good enough will always come because it's just a byproduct of feeling like I am separate from life or I am living a life that I have to take care of. So as we begin to, of course, there's the inner path of inquiry where we halt that momentum, but the path of action, which goes side by side, is where you are giving more and more to life, trusting life more and more, taking us like inch away from the side of the pool, and learning how to float, and that itself starts to get rid of this limited identity at the subtle depths of being, loosening it up more and more, allowing you to be more free. A powerful paradigm shift that you can experiment with. Rather than being the person living in the world, see all of experience arising and subsiding in you, on you, appearing and disappearing on you. All experience, including that of being the person. So I'll say it again. The current template mold with which we live our life is I am this thing in this world which is outside of me, and I am journeying through it. Nothing wrong with that, but it's limited. It's an ignorance. So just experiment with, contemplate what it would be if the person itself, which again we're presupposing that I am not, the person itself is part of the experience, and it's sort of like flashing and arising, subsiding, coming, going. It's all a changeful experience. Everything we are aware of, everything we know, being seen by me, arising in or on me. But that me that it is arising in and of is not being defined as anything, is unknown, is not a thing. Because again, if it was a thing, it's in the realm of experience and it would be flashing and going, coming, going. So see, this is just another aspect of letting, like giving yourself over to life, because like then the person itself becomes part of the life that is coming and going. It itself is part of the movement, because you take your own movement to be very independent of the world's movement. So when we start to see the person as one with the movement of the world, then it's like one seamless movement, one seamless arising, subsiding in me or on me, being seen by me. But that me is not being defined, but it's here. I am. That's the fact. This itself starts to free up the again the identity, the mask. And just a few comments on your dealing with the feeling. Again, and anytime you're observing a feeling and the overwhelm arises as well, the overwhelm is also observable. It may not seem like that, but it is. And this is what you'll grow to see very clearly, to the point where overwhelm can no longer be overwhelming because it is observed. Only because we become the overwhelm, identify with the overwhelm. And again, while doing so, we are taking ourselves to be the person in charge of their existence, in the person in charge of delivering this or protecting this. And we're having a feeling, becoming the feeling. Like all this is incorrect notions, assumptions that happen automatically and compulsively based on conditioning. So as you come to observe the feeling and the overwhelm that arises on behalf of it. Like previously you were observing the feeling, but when the overwhelm arose, it became you. But now you're seeing that the feeling and the overwhelm that arises they're being observed. They are the experience coming and going, arising and subsiding, not damaging you in any way or affecting you in any way. This will itself free you up from the feeling of being overwhelmed. Overwhelm will be there and it will go, just like it has already. And of course, the mind will have many ideas about, oh, and you see, like, it's crazy that we believe in the voice because it's literally saying all these things. First of all, as you, the person, it's speaking as Sarah, and it's speaking about Sarah in a negative way. It's a very twisted thing that when we start looking at it for what it is, it's so silly that it's ever taken serious. So just take that to be part of the dirty mind that we're cleaning up, the dirty mirror that we're cleaning up. Not through fighting that, not through, but it's actually just by depriving it of attention. And when you start to do so, of course, thoughts will come up like, oh, but aren't you just ignoring your thoughts? Or this isn't, is this really going to work? But again, you care about these thoughts, you're already in that again. You're again speaking as you, Sarah, about if this is going to work for Sarah. Automatically in the personal trap, back in the personal momentum, reinforcing your very insecurities, fears, going backward. Not going backward, but just back into it. So that's the acceptance practice, just depriving of depriving the dialogue of any attention. It's completely safe to do so. For whom would it not be safe? Who are you worried about for whom it would not be safe potentially, So even when these concerns arise, even if the concern arises of working versus it's not working, like what does it have to produce? What does it have to create? What personal gain does it have to bring you right now for you to be satisfied? It's all just like a mental dialogue. Just turn away. Towards what? Towards the feeling in that moment. The raw experience, the feeling of being overwhelmed or whatever else you're feeling, unworthiness or whatever it is. See how beautiful of an experience even unworthiness is. the fact that it actually is, because worthiness wouldn't be without unworthiness also. So see how it's just equally of a valid of an experience. It's not less valid than worthiness. There's nothing wrong with it. And it doesn't hurt you. It doesn't take anything away from you. See that when you practice this, or when you simply turn away from the mind, you're stepping out of time. There's no concept of time when you look away from the mind. The moment you like are thinking, once again, time is there. But in the moment of not thinking, experiment with this. Actually, it's quite fascinating. The moment you turn away from the mind, there's no such thing as time. Again, until again, once again, we step into mind, and time once again becomes again the mold of our existence, one of the molds. So what is the idea of it taking forever or taking this much time or that much time? Again, it's like the person trying to get somewhere. So it's very fun to expose yourself in all of these ways. Expose the mind, bashing the mind, fighting the mind, and be like, what the hell? I'm not trying to do this anymore. Not even as a thought, but just like you're just seeing the uselessness of it and just turning away. That's the only thing to do. You're not judging it, because again, that is just more activity of the mind. You're just turning away. You're just dropping it. That is usually what is often referred to just as like letting go. Letting go, again, it's not thinking about it or trying to do something to let it go, because that itself is just a pursuit. Letting go is actually absolutely just dropping of it. How to do it, nothing, it can't be described. It just has to be experienced and done. If you need help with this, with living this teaching, this understanding, if you want the consistent guidance and support, learn more about my School of Awakening. It will absolutely transform your entire practice, your understanding. The link is in the description box below.